Okay, good morning, everyone. I am Dr. Hannah Granger-Clemson. I will be moderating this European Education Month event on working towards an EU teachers and trainers agenda. You are all very welcome. Before we start, of course, you've been notified that our hosts, the fantastic Educational Leadership Network Europe, are recording all the sessions. And so with that, I also welcome those who are not here live, but are perhaps watching the recording later on. We are getting warmed up to the topic already. We are posting a question to all participants, and it should be coming up in the chat now or has already come up to ask you your opinions and ideas about current educational policies and whether those seem to be addressing the issues that we will be discussing today, namely working conditions, well-being and career opportunities for teachers and trainers. As announced in the Union of Skills Communication last week, the EU Teachers and Trainers Agenda, which is foreseen for 2026, this represents a vital step towards improving working conditions and career progression of the teaching profession across Europe. Now, today's session is the perfect opportunity to take your first steps together as a community of education stakeholders and, of course, experts in your own right, and to begin to consider this agenda. Now, when I first heard the word, I had to pause and I had to think, what could an agenda do? Now, my understanding is that, of course, an agenda is where you put all of the things that are important to talk about. But I know, and I'm sure you do too, that our expectations are probably more than that. So the task then for us today is to reflect on what a future agenda might help systems and stakeholders to achieve, and how. And how do we do that realistically, but also ambitiously? Now, we know that there are council recommendations, there are policy guidelines that have been developed over many years. We know that there's funding for projects and mobilities that already exist. And all of these in some way are trying to address teacher and trainer working conditions and career progression in some way. And yet certain issues and challenges have continued to trouble us. So what might an agenda look like and do to really unlock these? Now, we have some brilliant education leaders and experts here today, and that includes all of our participants, of course. We have an opportunity to identify these key issues relating to working conditions or career progression, and to share examples of recent work that could help to construct the agenda. Now, I think the crucial point that we need to think about is how we can be active in the process as stakeholders, rather than passively waiting for such agendas to be written. Appearing on your screens in a moment are two word clouds that have been generated from the comments that the participants have made. We asked participants in their registration forms to give us some idea of what they're thinking, what they've been experiencing. And when you see these may give you a sense of the kinds of challenges that are being faced and ideas that we may discuss. So current issues that participants are hoping that the agenda will address. We're seeing, you can see these for yourselves if I read out a few. Shortages, well-being is right at the centre there, workload, retention, pedagogy, international, pedagogical, leadership, and then sort of more about the kind of the progression, taking care of pre-service teachers, but also really thinking about the work that they're doing in terms of innovation, integration, and modernization. So there's some really interesting words there within that. I don't know yet if we've got we're able to see the early responses to the Slido question that we put up already, which was, how well do you think current education policies in your system are addressing these issues. If we're able to see that now, that would be super. I can see the coordination team are working away really quickly. Oh, there's clear responses there. How well? 4, meaning we did on a scale of very well would be 1. So we've got 20% saying 1, 2, quite confident, happy with the current educational policies. But it seems there that there's some dissatisfaction with current education policies in the different systems in terms of addressing these issues. So that's certainly an interesting starting point, and hopefully we can move on positively from that and see where we get to within this short event. Thank you very much to the coordination team for showing those, and thank you to everybody for participating in those short questions. Now, this morning's event is a panel discussion followed by further opportunities for all of our participants here to engage live in reflection and debate. And I really do encourage all of you to be as active as possible and to use your voice. But to get started with our ideas, who better to hear from than representatives of the European Commission? I'm delighted to now hand over to Ulrika Storost and Nuria Diaz-Guardia from the Directorate General for Education, Youth, Culture and Sport to give us some of the background to this agenda and to hear more from their perspective about the initial ideas. So thank you to both of you.
Thank you very much, Hannah, and really a big thanks to the ELNE network for organizing this event. I think the time-wise you couldn't have met it better. We had just the announcement of the Teachers and Trainers agenda last week under the Union of Skills, and we are starting now really the stakeholder consultations. We want to take the whole year of 2025 to really hear as many voices from the ground to be able to draft something. Hannah has already said it, the topic has been in policy debates. There have been many yeah, I think much evidence. We'll dig deeper into this, policy conclusions, etc. So what can we do? The problem persists. And this is today really a good occasion to hear from you. So I'm very much welcoming an interactive debate and to hear as many voices from you as the experts in this field. So just to present myself, Ulrika Storost, I'm working in DG EAC in education, school education, the unit of school education and multilingualism, together with my colleagues that are here, Nuria Diaz-Garcia and Cécile Leclerc. We are working on the EU Teachers and Trainers agenda. So you have the team here. And I wanted to maybe start just with a short introduction on the policy context and the evidence base. So to kickstart then or lay the ground for the discussions. Let me share the presentation and I hope it will work out well. So you can see it, right? So working towards the future EU Teachers and Trainers agenda, it's important to say that it doesn't yet exist, as Hannah said, and I just explained as well. It was announced not only last week, but already in the political guidelines of our President von der Leyen. She really announced that Europe as such needs to step up. We need to make up a radical change in ambition and action for all skills levels and at all types of education and training to improve people's career and prospects for life, and of course also in the context of increasing Europe's political competitiveness. And in this context, the Union of Skills is one of the first deliverables of this Commission. So in the first 100 days, just last week, the Commission published the Union of Skills communication together with an action plan on basic skills and a strategic plan on STEM, so to improve the skills in science, technology, engineering and mathematics. And in this context, the Teachers and Trainers agenda was reiterated. So it was announced for 2026. We have now the timeline. And it also specifies that it will be a Teachers and Trainers agenda, helping member states tackle teaching shortages, improving teachers' working conditions, and improving teachers and trainers' career prospects. So this is what we know at the moment. We also already have a first set of announced actions that will support educators. It was announced in the Basic Skills Action Plan, also published last week. So I put here an extract of this specific action. The action plan actually contains more initiatives, also on supportive environments and boosting basic skills teaching, but it has also a particular chapter on initiatives supporting educators. I'm not going to read them out in the interest of time, but you see a bit on the slide in which direction this will go. There are important dimensions mentioned, for example, the mentoring system, where we know that this is one of the most effective ways to introduce teachers into effective teaching. We also mention here the Erasmus Plus Teacher Academies, where new community will be a community of practice will be shaped, and some other activities that you can read on this slide. So this is what is new under this commission, but of course there's a lot that can be built on, and I hand over to Nuria for the evidence base. Nuria, I just continue showing the slides and I think you can take the floor.
Perfect, thank you. So the first one we have is about shortages of teachers. And this is something that we have been seeing and observing and discussing about for a long time. So it's not a new issue, but it persists. Perhaps it becomes even more acute. And it's actually an issue in almost all member states, but it's not shared equally. So it's more widespread among early childhood educators and special needs teachers. So this is something quite important because this stands out from all professions. These are two professions that have the most widespread shortages. Then STEM, that is also quite well known, STEM shortages, but there are also differences across countries, with some reporting a lack of teachers for foreign languages or native languages. So I think there is a huge diversity. So we will try to bring out what is common, but also cover a bit what is different across countries. And then the issue of differences across the territories. So the issues with rural schools, more disadvantaged schools, this is where shortages are hardest to fill. And I should say shortages of teachers or shortages of qualified teachers. This is also something that we can discuss. If you can go to the next slide, please. Yes. So it's about looking at the evidence from PISA, the latest round of PISA in 2022. School leaders are more concerned now than they used to be in the last round of PISA in 2018 about the shortage of education staff. The old and aging workforce, that's quite an important trend that is also not new, but we know that the number of teachers who are going to retire in the coming years and coming decades. And then the gender imbalance, which is something that we often note, that there's a very strong gender imbalance, but perhaps we need to dig a little bit more into the reasons and the consequences for this. So for this, the sources are quite well known. So we have TALIS, which is also a survey known as the Voice of Teachers. So I think we are quite lucky that the next round will be available in 2022. We have Eurydice, we have this is well known, but actually the conversation of today and the coming conversations can also help us to know where we have gaps in the evidence base, and that we could try to fill in the future. And I think the next slide, please. It's already, this is a 23 report, so I will not go into the detail, but I think it's quite a useful reference for everyone, because it added a bit of of evidence at the system level. So the whole education system level of a country. So not at the school level, but really at the system level. And this is also something that we can discuss later. So it covers a range of issues, how to address the teacher shortages. And I think perhaps the next slide already. The other evidence that is coming, I already talked about TALIS and TALIS starting to strong. So also covering early childhood education and care, not for many countries, but for some countries. That will be quite interesting to have a bit more about the early years. The Education and Training Monitor of 23 that made an overall look at many factors that affect the teaching profession. And then we're also working in the future on a new NSF report about school leaders, because this is we felt that there was a bit of a lack of specific knowledge about school leaders, and a new Eurydice report on teachers that is planned. It will come later, but it will also be quite a relevant source. And all this to be complemented with with basically more the lived experience. So this is also something we are looking after today's meeting and later to also hear, to complement this with more voices of people who are in their specific situation and can add to this picture to make it more complete. And the next slide, please, I think. I'll go back to you, Ulrike.
Yeah, thank you, Nuria. So a lot is known, and what has the EU and others been doing about this? So I focus here on the last 5 years, the last Commission mandate. Already there, you can see that in the European education area, teachers and trainers were among one of the 6 key priority areas. So it was really already identified as a very important area where more needs to be done. And we also have what I find still a very nice and valid vision of how we see teachers as competent and motivated teachers and trainers who of course need support by a seamless continuum of high quality initial education, induction, and also continuous professional development all throughout their careers, including the participation in networks, communities, and benefiting from learning mobility abroad. So this was the broad vision, and that vision was broken down in initiatives, so the flagship initiatives under the European education area. And actually on all of these, my colleagues have worked hard in the last 5 years. So for example, the Erasmus Plus Teacher Academies developed into I would say, flourishing flagship under Erasmus Plus. So we had the first, we actually even exceeded the initial aim of having 25 teacher academies. So we now have 27, and actually just the third tranche was just published and started now for the next 3 years. So these are cooperation projects between teacher training institutions across Europe, and the idea is that they form really a community where teachers can already have a European dimension in their initial education and continued professional development, and there would be also a systemic impact, at least a kind of systemic collaboration between these academies. And as I just said in the very beginning, Basic Skills Action Plan announced that we will create a community of practice that is about to start. So there will be even more intense communication between the different teacher academies starting very soon. Actually, in the next few weeks, we are in the starting blocks for this community of practice. Then the second project under the European education area is the career, developing already more attractive and sustainable careers for teachers. And there was the guidance developed for national frameworks for school education careers. So it built on the previous working group of schools, and it was then extended by a peer learning project which helped countries to shape national career frameworks for school education for teachers and school leaders. And so then the third initiative is the European Innovative Teaching Award that is running now in this year in its 5th round, awarding each year around 100 innovative projects and showcasing really the wonderful work of teachers that they do together at the European level. It has gained quite some visibility also. There's always an event in Brussels shedding light on some of the most innovative European teaching practices. And there's always a topic each year that also links then to some of the priorities at European level. So this year, for example, it is citizenship education. And then the last one is the mobility, where there was the Europe on the Move initiative with an annex on teacher mobility last year, highlighting that more needs to be done for teachers to have possibility to also make use of the mobility possibilities under Erasmus Plus, and to increase the teachers that are mobile also with a prospect of the attractiveness of the career. All throughout these years, we have worked on the European School Education Platform, and especially also e-twinning to bring teachers together eTwinning is one of the largest networks across Europe with very motivated and committed teachers that have a very accessible way there to start their cooperation projects, and not only with their students but also exchange among themselves. So things have been done, and the question is now, of course, what could be done more? Why are the teacher shortages getting even worse? So what is the possibility to do at EU level to complement the efforts at national level, of course? And there I would like to invite you today, but also throughout the year, to feed your knowledge into the broad stakeholder consultations that we will have, so into the conceptualization of the agenda, but also later on into implementation. So we'll discuss, today is one of the opportunities, the agenda with different stakeholders, the national authorities, social partners, teachers and trainers themselves, school leaders, researchers, education and training providers, and civil society organizations. And this can be done in targeted consultations, but also in a call for evidence that we will publish. So don't send immediately your contributions after this webinar. You still have time. We will publish a call for evidence, and there you will have time to then really send us also your follow-up thoughts to this workshop today. We'll also reach out to teachers and trainers themselves to hear voices, for example, through eTwinning, or we have a teachers panel in the Commission on which we can also call upon. We have foreseen a survey on the European School Education Platform. And yeah, Nuria already mentioned that there will also be some more evidence coming in the year. I think these questions for discussions will be taken up in the panel that follows, and I hand over back to Hannah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ulrike and Nuria. That really does, I think, give us a much better sense of what has come before and where we're looking to in the future. I love the fact that you used the words motivation and attractiveness. I think that helps to give us a sense of how we move forward positively in terms of addressing shortages as a problem. It seems to be it's easy to get stuck in the problems, and we're looking for positive ways forward. And they, as you say, they're not separate issues. You know, improving the career prospects is part of improving the working conditions, which is leading to addressing shortages, not solving everything, but they're certainly interlinked. And it was also great to hear you talk about the different types of evidence, and that really, as panelists here, as the network and the fantastic participants we've also got with us today, it's those different types of evidence, not just the big survey numerical data, but also, as you said, really trying to dig into those lived experiences and try to capture that evidence to support development and policy making as well. So thank you so much for that. So now we do indeed come to our panel discussion to begin to reflect on how we as stakeholders see these different issues and how we can become engaged. Whilst we hear from the panelists, I invite the other participants that are here with us live and those who might be watching the recording of this session later on to reflect on your own ideas and responses to the same questions. So it is my great pleasure to welcome our panel. We have Daniel Wisniewski, who is General Secretary of the European Federation of Education Employers. We have Petra van Haren, Director of the European School Heads Association. We have Petra Kugelnik from the European Parents Association, and we have Jelmer Evers, the new European Director of the European Trade Union Committee for Education. Welcome to you all, and we will dive straight in. So my first question to the panel is, what do you hope or expect from a future EU teachers and trainers agenda as a way of unlocking barriers to better working conditions and career progression? And I would like to start with Petra van Haren, if we could hear from you first, please.
Yes, thank you. Well, as said, I'm from the European School Head Association, so that will be the perspective that I choose for my part of the dialogue, and I'm sure that others will cover some other perspective. I'm expecting, actually, I have high expectations because I think everything that you really make an agenda for will flourish. At the same time, that's my worry, because on this agenda, there is something that actually kind of misses the spotlight, and that is the position of school heads. I think it's very important that we refine the target groups and the objectives. I think they exist, but they are not enough explicit, and they are kind of undervaluated. Well, what I mean by that, a school teacher, a school head used to be a head teacher, a teacher with some extra task, a primus inter pares, but by now, they are actually developed real leaders, managerial leaders, and they have a very important role in the school. And I would challenge everybody in this agenda to see the school head from the perspective of the teacher as a labor condition, because good school leadership makes it possible that teachers actually get a position, that they are treated as professionals, that they get all the autonomy and the autonomous space that they need, and also they can be positioned in shared leadership. And since we are not addressing this clearly enough, we also miss the career perspective that was mentioned, because the gap between the teacher and the school head is quite a big gap. And if you don't actually have this positioned as a career path towards leadership, you miss something. I come from the Netherlands. Only 5% of the teachers there has the ambition to become a school head, because they think it's very hard work with very little reward. Plus, they actually don't really know what the job is about. So well, when I see on the word cloud that leadership is mentioned only once, it's not so clear to me what is meant. And I think in all the teacher trainings, leadership is also underestimated and undervaluated, or even not addressed at all. So I think this percentages, like we showed how many people actually think that they have a good position as a teacher in their country, 40% okay, 60% less. I would challenge you, if we research it, that on the 40% that actually evaluates it high, they will find that there is strong school leadership. So for me, the challenge to the agenda is, I have high expectations, but please specify the target groups and don't forget the leadership.
Thank you very much. We go straight over to ELNE Evers. How do you respond to that question?
Yeah, thank you. And also thank you, of course, for the Commission to have this conversation. We already had some initial conversations. So I've been a teacher for 17 years, and I'm in this position now because I think the policies in the Netherlands have failed. And I went into union leadership and also dealing with professional associations, writing books, because exactly those kind of ideas that are in our position weren't enacted in national policy, but also on a local level. And I've had the privilege of working in a school where, schools actually, where I had lots of professional autonomy and really good school leaders. But that was not very common, and is still not very common in the Netherlands. So I'd like to, a couple of points. It is embedded in the Union of Skills, which in itself worries us quite a bit, the way it is framed, but also the way innovation and businesses are sort of like put at this sort of like primary position and drivers of our educational systems, and also in the governance structures, etc. So that's an initial comment, which I really think we need to address and talk about further. And I really think the Commission needs to take that into account. But I also would like to reframe how we approach this, because we always talk about a profession, but when you look at it, we don't treat the teaching profession as a profession. If you look at sort of like medical specialists or etc., you see a lot of the things that are there, or there should be there, aren't there. So we have a say in our own professional standards. We are involved in our own education, teacher education of our colleagues. Also in professional development that derives from those standards. We are involved in our own knowledge base and research, etc. Professional autonomy is really strong, and we design our own curriculum and pedagogy. And that in itself, if you mark that old checklist, is again also your whole career structure. Because if you look at medical specialists in the Netherlands, there is no difference between a practitioner, a researcher, an educator, and also people in charge of professional development. They need to be a practitioner. And in the for the teaching profession, we've cut almost everything up. So that's sort of like what we need to. That's also benchmarks that we can introduce, I think, for the whole agenda. So those are some things that are missing. Then again, also to make this happen, and we also know this from research, that the conditions need to be right. So, and we also need benchmark for this, and we need to see if there's progression on this. And if you look at, I think also how educations were designed, and that's in the Netherlands, and I think the programs in the EU mirrors this. There's an individual entry point and there's an institutional entry point, but there's no professional entry point in the programs. So the teacher academies, they're all institutional based, and lots of Erasmus programs are individual based. But as a collective, we are not addressed, and there's not a lot of entry points for us as teachers to engage with this. And we are quite well organized, actually, on a national level and also on a European level and also on an international level. So there is sort of like an entry point there, but it's not being used by national jurisdictions, and also I don't think enough by the Commission. And it's not going to work because it is an essential point that you respect the teaching profession and that you trust the teaching profession. So it's actually shows that, yes, we use a lot of fancy words that I think it's a really important profession. But if you actually look at all these benchmarks that I just talked about, it's not actually there. So for the teacher's agenda to be successful, it needs to be designed in such a way that we also are not the only one, but a very crucial partner in this whole program. And it also includes, I think, working with a tripartite social dialogue framework structurally, which includes national governments, which is completely absent on the European level at the moment, I think. And I think also it's good that the question of data was raised and research. I think there are a lot of gaps. So we are starting our own research on working conditions with support of the European Commission, which we're very grateful for, of course. But if you look at sort of like the PISA and the TALIS data, also as a teacher, I know that there are so many gaps in there that they don't really reflect the reality. And it also makes it really hard to make proper policy decisions that are actually evidence-based. So those are some initial things for me that I wanted to introduce into the discussion. For me, the most important point is that we redesign it towards a professional framework.
Thank you very much. And as you mentioned, the stakeholders and those with interesting perspectives are diverse, and that's why it's fantastic we have Petra Kuchelnig from the European Parents Association to give us your perspective. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So yes, how does the European Parents Association, with the view of parents, come into this discussion? Well, our paradigm is that parents, of course, are the prime educators, but as our main goal is that every child can reach their full potential, we also see schools and education as the extended family, because children can only reach their full potential if they learn in a feeling of security and full safety, which means that they have to recognize their educational setting as a setting like an extended family. And what we see, we work closely together with schools, with school boards, also with individual schools and our members who do trainings for parents in schools. We talk a lot with teachers, and what we see is that while we do the talk, which is great, and we're very grateful to the European Commission because we think this Union of Skills initiative is more than timely and really an important start to the discussion. We see that we do the talk, but governments do not walk the walk. They do a walk, but the completely opposite direction. We're talking about a change in paradigm. We're talking about bold change, but everything that we're actually doing is more of the same. And that's really where we see a problem, because while we talk about improving conditions, teachers continue to leave the profession because they are demotivated. They're going into burnouts. If you look at the system, you can see, if you look at the individual systems, you can see that everything that's happening is the exact contrary of what we're talking. I'll be a little bit the devil's advocate here, because while we appreciate all the initiatives and we think that the new opportunities and the widening of opportunities that you have mentioned is so important, we also have heard a lot today the words learning, training, skills, and career. But the word attractiveness and motivation was only mentioned once, and Hannah has also underlined it. And we do think, in actual fact, that this is the true change, the true ambition that we should have. Because our teachers today, if you talk to them individually, they are demotivated, overburdened, overloaded, underpaid, devalorized. They leave the profession, especially in primary education and care, because the classes are too big. They do not feel that they can actually handle it. They have a huge problem with the additional workload of red tape, administrative burden. So we can throw all the most beautiful additional training at them, but if they do not have the time or the strength and the motivation and the recognition to do them, it will just be more money spent in empty areas. So we really need to realize that while the additional training and the focus on skills is important, the true problem underlying the entire question is another one. We really have to start looking at the true well-being, at the true recognition. And I have the feeling, and we have the feeling, that we're still not doing that. We're talking about it, but then we're doing something else. So we think we really have to start addressing the root causes, especially, as you mentioned, for early childhood education and care. We also see what my colleague Petra, the name colleague Petra said. We also see that school boards are not taken into play enough. Because at the moment, what we see is that teachers can be, it's a gambling board for them in what school they will end up. They can end up in a school where the school management has a certain freedom and liberty to actually really take good care of their teachers. They can be, for example, here in Belgium, we see that they can be in a city in which the city funds their schools very well, and then they have better opportunities, and the school has some freedom of handling things and providing better opportunities and better conditions to their teachers. But if a teacher ends up in another, here in Belgium, it would be in another town, in another system, then it can be really backfiring and the other way around. And teachers are leaving, not because they're not trained enough, but because they cannot handle it anymore. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Petra. And now is an opportunity to bring the discussion sort of round to where we started, but also, as you mentioned, we're talking about management and leadership and what they can do, which is a perfect opportunity to hear from Daniel and the perspective of education employers. Thank you.
Well, first of all, good morning. I have to say that it's not a good moment right now to listen to me right now, because I just heard so many things I actually would disagree with, that I will have to now bite my tongue quite a bit. So first of all, we have a completely different vision about the teaching profession. And yes, there are problems, there is teacher shortage, there are certain ways, there are certain problems in certain areas, in certain sectors. But teaching is a wonderful profession. It's a great profession. It's a profession where working conditions does not have to be bad. And in many countries, they are not bad. They are actually quite positive. It's a profession where many teachers can somehow combine their personal life with their professional life. And so I would try to maybe say a few things about positive aspect of it and kind of show a different picture of the teaching profession. It's a profession that's highly regularized and is highly closed, which of course prevents the supply of teachers and somehow contributes to the shortage of teachers that we can see. That's one problem. Second, of course, well, we need to also rethink the way we see the school. The school somehow needs to be seen as an employer providing different kinds of jobs, not just teaching itself. And that's one of the reasons why the teaching career isn't attractive. It's not necessarily related to salary, because in many countries salaries are comparable with the labor market, but they are actually considered, a job itself is considered obsolete. Why? Well, because we do not see a school as an attractive employer with different career pathways inside it. And that's something that we need to think about as a school. So a school needs to be an employer where you can see multiple pathways for personal and professional growth, not just in teaching, but also in leadership and research. And so we need to rethink the concept of the school and move it more towards university schools, research institutes, which teaching is there and is provided and is the core of it, but a person who is enchanted with teaching can actually develop also in multiple ways. And that is key to improve the retention of teachers and improve the attractiveness. So it's about designing new career pathways and making it more diverse. That's another point. Flexible access points to the teaching profession. I mentioned here a little bit that teaching profession is highly regularized. The supply is normally controlled nationally, often with the help of teacher trade unions. And because of that reason, this also contributes to the challenge of the shortage of teaching profession. So I would not agree with the statement that teachers are poor people. They're not poor people. Nobody is, I mean, they are there, they are amazing people. And in fact, the teaching profession itself is great. It's quite a positive picture there. Now, I agree though, because Petra mentioned that we need to work a little bit on the red tape. I think that indeed we have a lot of opportunities that we can still unleash and uncover when it comes to making schools more automative. Automative meaning everything that is administration. We can use artificial intelligence. We can use digital tools in order to make this part, which is tedious, which might be unattractive for some people, to cut it. And this requires certain investment, but it's possible to do. One thing I can say that I would actually agree with Jelmer. He mentioned there that this diversification of career is very important. So addressing the flatness of it, flexible pathways to the profession, and opening up the profession itself, making sure that the supply and in and out is an open question. So a person who enters into teaching cannot feel that this person cannot switch to something else and then not come back. We need to open it up. We need to link it with the existing labor market so we can also bring professionals to the profession, as professionals from other crafts, from other professions, to enter the teaching. We have that. We have that at university level. It actually works pretty well in many ways. Why don't we try to look into this? And at European level, we can create benchmarks about career diversification, about working conditions, about this red tape cutting. All this is possible. And I think, and I would really love that is addressed or at least mentioned in the EU teacher agenda. But the final point is, teaching is really a great profession. And our role as leadership here is to show this is a great profession. There's many things we need to change, but it's a great profession. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It seems like we've got a strong sense of narrative coming through it in what you're saying, and that might be what we're expecting or what the agenda might provide, that narrative, that positive narrative, but also a sense of the education setting not being a sort of pre-factory of developing skills, but it is an extension of the family, and the early years or school or vet college setting is somewhere of diverse career opportunities where different roles can be taken and people can work in different ways and really enjoy what they are doing. I'm going to challenge the panelists now a little bit more, because we really want to hear from other participants, but we want to really dig into what the agenda could include, and thinking also particularly in terms of evidence. So what is one thing, panelists, that you think your organization and all your members could bring to this process of developing the agenda, perhaps based on something specific that you've been working on recently? what is one thing that you could bring to the process? And I'm going to come straight back to Daniel to put you on the spot for that.
Okay, so you will have to listen to me for another 10 minutes.
1 minute.
1 minute. Okay, so what we can bring, EFI in itself, our federation in itself, representing the management and educational leadership when it comes to systemic view, we over the years have become a laboratory for policy change, and we run multiple projects, research that somehow can help pilot. We see pilots, we see all kinds of innovative solutions to this management. So that's something we could certainly bring. To give you an example of it, we are currently running a project on one of the issues I raised here, which is about attractive teaching careers and teaching career progression schemes, where we are indeed looking into this diversification of professional careers that you can do inside the school. And we go beyond teaching. We want to go also into research and research-based careers with teaching. We also want to go into leadership, into community management, into communication with teaching, and so on and so on. We want to see the school as a working institution of multiple jobs, like any other enterprise. There's multiple things that the school has to do, and there's place for multiple kinds of people with multiple characteristics who can share teaching with their passion for something else. And this is, I think, the main added value we can provide, which is being that laboratory for policy design, policy exchange, providing research and data to this EU teacher agenda.
Thank you. Petra, from the Parents Association perspective, how does that, how do you feel that you'll be able to fit into the process and offer something to this as on behalf of your organization?
Thank you very much. In broad, I would say that, of course, while we can bring the view of the real world impact of educational policies and practices, because our membership comprises European Parents Association all across Europe, national and regional parents associations. We do also have additional insights through many European projects in which we participate. And we think what would be probably one of the most valuable examples is the home-school relationships that are, for us, a success factor of successful education, especially when it comes to reaching the so-called hard-to-reach parents. We're often approached by governments, by stakeholders on how to reach parents, especially from migrant background, etc. And there we have a lot of experience for our projects and other. And also in terms of early education and care, of course, especially these homeschool relationships are of particular importance.
Thank you. That's so interesting. Now, Yama, you had quite a few ideas for the agenda. Is this from the trade union's perspective? Are there one or two particular things that you think would be you could crucially add to the process?
I won't repeat them, all of them. But first of all, I think it's important to state that we represent millions of teachers. So it's an entry point into the teaching profession itself. So both associations and unions, so that's sort of like the professional and the industrial are combined, and that's also how we started, for example, in the Netherlands 200 years ago, my own union and association. So what we bring is an international sort of like network and framework, because we also work with the ILO, UNESCO, OECD through our international global office, which is also here at the same place. There are many evidence-based and frameworks and programs that we have there, for example, on teaching standards and how to implement them. And there are many more. One of the things that we also do with the OECD yearly is the ISTP, and many European countries are there, the International Summit on the Teaching Profession, which are both unions and governments with the OECD and Education International working together. I'll be there in Iceland in 2 weeks' time. So that's an international interesting framework that the European Union could probably look at as a model, maybe that we can copy. Then ESTP, for example, European Summit on the Teaching Profession, would be an interesting model to follow up. And again, also the same things that we do on a European and global level, we also do on a national level. So all of our members do their own research, have their own policy proposals, evidence-based, etc. But also, of course, that practitioner viewpoint and experience, which is collectively built and not individually built. And that for me is a very important distinction.
Super, thank you so much. And now back to Petra van Haren. You started off brilliantly with the agenda to take into consideration the leadership, the management, the position of school heads. And you've also listened to the other panelists speaking. What are your feelings now, and what in particular might your organisation contribute to the process? Oh, could you just try your microphone?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I think it's kind of dangerous to ask for feelings instead of facts. Because my feeling is that I always feel a distinction between people that have actually worked in education as a teacher or a head teacher or supportive staff, and people that have only observed it from the outside. And the perspective that is reflected on really, and that's a feeling, gives to me that the ones who work there have a different understanding. Well, that brings me a little bit to the point that I think the image needs to be positive, because what Daniel said, it's a wonderful profession, but, and that is always this dilemma, there is a huge overload and a shortage. And it's very difficult to have a positive image when you have also big problems. I think we see it all over the world, but this is one that we really can tackle also in this agenda, I hope. And it's important that we tackle that. And on top of that, I really want to stress that the shortage of head teachers percentual is bigger than the shortage of teachers. So please don't ignore that fact as well. So what can we bring? I think to approach education from a whole school approach, and that has an inside dimension, like the employer matters, the school head matters, the teacher matters, and in the end, it's in the benefit of students if this alignment is a good alignment. The other one is outside, that the whole school approach means that you are a part of society, the ecosystem around the school. And what ESHA mainly does is networking on an international level with organizations. We share this knowledge and experience, research, we advocate for the profession. But at the same time, we see what's missing the individual level, because there is no school heads academy program, there is no job shadowing facilitated for school heads, there is no international exchange in an individual level. And then the European Union will say, yes, it's there, because if you read carefully, it says in the teacher agenda somewhere school heads. And that's exactly the point. If it's implicit, it's not explicit. And I think that's our contribution, to make it explicit, because we need each other, and only the true collaboration of all the parties here can actually tackle that the teaching profession, which is a wonderful profession, actually get valuated for it, and teachers can really experience well-being. It's not an emotion, but it's a fact that the well-being is severely under pressure for a lot of reasons, and we need to tackle this.
Thank you so very much, and good to end this part of the event on a positive note. You can probably tell from my camera that the sun has just come out as a sort of symbolic gesture, hopefully, to our mood and our thinking on the agenda. Now, thank you so much, the panelists. We are going to hear more from you because you are participating in the next part of the event, but this is the point of the session where we're going to open up to hear from more of our participants who have joined us live this morning. We have more experts and stakeholder representatives who've been waiting patiently and listening carefully to your inspirational words. We are going to open up a few breakout rooms, and we're going to invite you to carry on the discussion as inspired by the panelists. And of course, as we have European Commission colleagues with us this morning, we really do encourage you to take this opportunity to share as much as possible from your from your experience and from your recent work. To help to shape the discussion, we're presenting you with the same questions which should be appearing in the chat now or soon. And we will also give you a link to a shared Padlet where you can type in and record your ideas, either by listening and recording something that somebody else has said or putting in your own comments, because it is really important for us and for the network to capture all of your discussions equally. So the two questions we would like you to think about are the same as with the panelists. What could a teachers and trainers agenda usefully look like and do? And then how could we as stakeholders be actively involved in the process? So you will now have around 20 minutes to meet each other in these rooms, to share your ideas and also note anything you feel is important in the online Padlet. The coordination team will soon be opening the rooms, and then we will meet back here in 20 minutes time for our final reflections. So thank you once again for your participation so far, and I'll hand over to the coordination team to facilitate the breakout discussions.
Yes, so everybody has been assigned to the 2 breakout sessions, and in 20 minutes they should be coming back automatically, Hannah.
Perfect. I still see 2 people here. Do they need
2
assistance?
people. Main meeting. Yes. So Nikki is because he was doubled, so he has 2 devices. He's in another
Okay.
room, and Julia, I will send to one of the 2 rooms.
Where do they see the Padlet?
So the Padlet, the link, I don't have it. I don't know if Monica has it, but we could put it in the chat directly to access. So do you have the link to the Padlet, Hannah?
So, no, I don't see it, but I also don't think the participants have it either. If it's
okay,
not
I'll ask Monica to send me the link. I did send the questions in the chat though, so they have them available
That's
there.
perfect. Depending on time, see what the commission say. I might waffle a bit about and summarize the themes just to, but then I'll say we've got these questions and then we can put them up, and then whilst they're doing that, I will do the thank you to these people, thank you to these people, thank you to these people.
Yes, perfect. For me, I don't know if you see it, I have like a timer for the breakout rooms and there's 16 minutes left, but if at any point you think we should hurry up or leave them longer, I can readjust.
I can only really tell, I mean, I assume they're talking.
Yeah, I'm talking to
without
Daniel
seeing
and
the
to Monica at
Padlet,
the same time.
yeah,
They're in 2 separate rooms.
when I see the Padlet, we'll know whether we've got enough stuff.
Okay.
Because there isn't any planned time to hear from the groups. I suppose there are 2 groups, so I just stuck to time really and gave them 20 minutes.
Okay.
So sorry, did you say she was putting the Padlet link in there?
Yeah, so Monica just sent me a link, but she sent me a link to a Slido rather than a
I see. Okay.
Padlet, and it's she put the question there: what can EU teachers and trainers agenda do, and how can stakeholders be involved in the process? And she suggested we do it in Slido.
Okay.
She's in one of the rooms. I don't know if that was a request from one of the speakers.
It's just how, yeah, because it's meant to stay open. Whatever it was meant to stay open for the rest of the day in case people went back to it. But
It can stay open. We can close it now to showcase the answers, but then it can stay open.
Okay. So yeah, we just, before we bring them back, I'd just like to have, if it's possible, to have a quick, I don't know if it's possible to have a look at it just to see what people are saying, but not now. Give them another.
Yeah.
I doubt that they'll write anything yet.
Okay. So it will be Monica sharing the answers.
Okay. I'll just change the. Keeping this open for the rest of the day. Coming up now in the chat. Okay. Dum de dum de dum.
Thank you so much, Hannah, for coordinating this whole webinar with Monica. I requested her as a suggestion, and she said, "Yeah, I'll talk to Hannah." And 2 minutes later, it was done. So thank you so much.
Emotional blackmail.
Yes.
Because you guys is important. You know, I find it impossible to say no to you guys.
But it's an amazing relationship that we have now, Hannah. Yeah. Whenever we need something, we're like, who can do this?
Of control.
Sure, yes, no, this whole month idea has been a bit hectic.
It's mad how much there is.
There's 35. And actually we're just on the technical side, like I am here, but for these 3 days, it fell on us mostly as well. So that's why Monica told me, if you need anything, leave it to me. So
you're amazing, honestly. It's incredible. Just looking at the page, I was like, there's this and this and that. I was like, how much goes into
actually
that?
Hannah, now that I think about it, the teacher ed conference is on the 13th of May, right? In Ghent, the final conference. We are having the ELNE conference the next day in Brussels. So I don't know if you registered, if Monica told you if you're available, but if you would like to come, for sure, feel free to let me know.
I was not invited.
We have it on the website. It's been
I didn't know it was open.
Yes.
I've already booked my travel back.
Okay. It's on the conference is on the 14th on the second half of the day. So
I already booked my travel back.
Okay, miscommunication for sure.
Yeah, because that would have been really easy whilst I was there. I could have just
Yes, because we thought about it only later, that it was even inconvenient for us because most people had already heard about the teacher ed conference and we hadn't communicated yet about ELNE. And then we were like, probably this is what happened to most of the attendees of the teacher ed conference, that they already booked their travel. So it would be complicated to rearrange.
Yeah, that's a pity. Oh no, yeah, that is.
We'll communicate earlier for next year. It's always our.
I mean, I knew about it because Monica was saying, "Oh my god!" and then we've got to all run back to Brussels and do another event. And I said, "Make sure that's the cool down, and we're not the warm up." But
exactly.
But I didn't. Even in my head, I didn't think. But then
for us, we're still figuring it out as a community of its own. That is not, ELNE is not necessarily a project, but it's also this open community. And of course, we have to run by the budget that we have project wise, but the conference is up to 100 participants, just like last year. So yeah, we always struggle, okay, where does this need to be published? Who does it need to reach? So on the communication side, I'm not the one working on it, so I'm not sure ever who it reaches. But yeah. But always feel invited for ELNE activities, Hannah, please.
Oh, bless. But I think, I mean, you should get more people who can dip in.
Yes.
Because of Brussels. I even mentioned to people for teacher ed, I said, it's in, you know, it's in Belgium. And I said, but it's not in Brussels, it's in Ghent. And quite a few of them were like, oh, that's like really, I was like, but it's just along there. But actually, it
and
does
I mean,
make
most
it a bit
people will
more.
be traveling back from Brussels anyways. But yeah, this year we're quite happy because compared to last year where it was a bit unbalanced in the stakeholder groups because some of them couldn't afford with the reimbursement that we were providing or they weren't available anymore. And this year we have quite a lot of student representation and parent representation, which was a bit lacking last year. So it should be an interesting conversation for sure.
How's our timer and our...
Yes, so
Did you put the commission colleagues in the discussions as well?
Yes, they are there as well. They are separated in the different discussions. From what we've heard from Cecile and Ulrike, they are very interested to hear what the stakeholders have to say. So
well, that's good. I didn't want them to feel kind of, and also I hope that they are listening to the people who haven't spoken yet or trying to encourage them to speak.
So it's 10 minutes left or 9 minutes left, really, but people are not answering in the Slido. So whether they are having a discussion and not putting it in right.
The thing is that we'll end up with the commission knowing more about the discussion than I know and you know. So I'm not, how do we capture the discussion?
Well, Daniel is in one. Daniel and Petra Van Haren are in one room, and Petra Kogelnik and Jelmer Evers are in the other one. So if you want to kind of ask for a recap from the panelists, that could
I think we might have to because well, there's the closing words actually from the commission. So, and if they're in there, they can say what they heard.
So in
but
one
I'm
room
just
we
thinking
have
of your report. You
Ulrike.
know, you're meant to write a report and say this happened in the discussion. This happened in the discussion, and
yes,
because if it's not in there, it's not going to be
the answers in writing.
And I will, when they come back, I will say also again, please take this opportunity to go into that and put your point down because we will make a...
Yes, I told both Monica and Daniel who are in the separate breakout rooms to insist on the Slido, so we have it in writing.
So we still have, what, 5 more minutes? 6 more minutes?
Yes, 7 minutes.
Okay. Oh, that's loads of time. It's almost half the time. It's not, yeah, there's so much being said, but I feel like we're getting somewhere to figuring out what an agenda can do.
It was very interesting to hear already just from the presentation and the panelists. So
I don't know about the quality of the video.
me on my side is quite okay.
But there's all the other panelists.
It was okay for everybody except for Petra Van Haren. That was a bit blurrier. But,
and she froze a bit, but
yeah, and she has the echo. It happened yesterday as well. We're not sure why. It's on her side.
I think because like me, she doesn't use the headphones.
The headphones, but for me, usually maybe it's because it's the wireless ones, but the earphones give me so much trouble for meetings. Okay, Monica is sending some of the answers from her breakout room, and it's tripartite social dialogue, investment in early childhood education and care, design benchmarks.
I mean, you could have benchmarks on whatever you like.
And there's another one maybe from the other room, enhanced working conditions and well-being.
I like what Daniel said about the kind of policy lab approach, because projects just are so temporary.
And they're so organizational level.
But...
Yeah, no, but we feel it as well. We really that grassroots input. So for us, yeah, projects is always the same people. It's always us. It's always our members at the schools and the teachers themselves. So we're trying to engage people more at a national level because they know their context better. And what ELNE is doing is to bring the stakeholders together, but at a European level, right? So it's once again only these people that are engaged in EU activities Whereas if it's at national level, you can still bring all of these stakeholders together, but in your own language, in your own context, to discuss things that are really affecting you directly. So the idea has been floating around for sure in FE's office. Introduce new way of thinking and involve parents in the conversation.
Big ideas type thing. There's some things I think they're the right narrative.
I can show you my screen because I'm seeing the answers there.
Yeah, but how? How? Design benchmarks.
And there's a couple of minutes left.
Okay, I'll just work the European Commission colleagues and push them to turn it into.
Yes.
I know they were a bit afraid, but I was like, you've got it. If they're in the discussion, they will have heard. I think that maybe they feel better now they're in the event.
Yeah, they seemed eager to know what people.
They were making lots of notes as well, so I'm sure. Okay, are you? So how long? 1 minute, and you?
1 minute 14 seconds.
Okay. Start my timer.
See the countdown here, and I can manually bring them back, but they're seeing it as well, so I don't want to cut them. I know now is when it's the 60-second.
You did it just right.
Yeah,
very impressive. Thank you.
Actually, when we started 20 minutes, I thought maybe it's very long. It proved that it was too short because we were still in the middle of a very vivid discussion.
So everybody's back, Hannah.
Okay, super. Well, indeed, welcome back to our guests from the Commission, panelists, and our live participants. It sounds like you did indeed enjoy your discussions and had plenty to talk about, and it's great to see some of the reflections coming through on the online Slido actually that we were using to try and record these. Now, I urge you to please continue to keep typing into that, because we're keeping this Slido discussion open. So that particular page is open for the rest of today. So if there's anything that you notice from your discussion was not yet noted down, if you have a reflection now that you were in the middle of explaining and want to note down, if you have a sudden idea later on today, please do add these via that same link. That is because we want to capture the discussions. We will be producing a sort of short summary of the event, and it is really important that we do have all of your ideas recorded. So I urge you please to go back to that Slido page at some point and note down your ideas or those on behalf of others. So we are coming to the end of the event. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to hand back over to our European Commission representatives. They, as you know, have been following both the panel discussion and the breakout groups, and they have offered to share some final reflections with us. So I'm handing back to Ulrika Storos and Nuria Diaz-Guardia. And really, anything from today that has struck you, perhaps from your breakout group discussion or from the broader panel discussion that we had earlier. Thank you very much, Ulrika and Nuria.
Thank you, Hannah. And yes, I can echo Petra's observation that it's too short. We were starting, but it's, as I said at the beginning, it's a starting point of more time we will have afterwards to engage in conversations and exchanges. I think we asked about the content and the form of the teachers and trainers agenda, and I took some notes of what I heard. So in terms of possible content, don't forget the school leaders, then think about comprehensive professional frameworks, address the workload of teachers is really the true issues behind well-being, the true recognition, design new career pathways and making it more diverse, enable the flexible pathways. These are some of the notes I took. I think it became very clear that we need to aim at a systemic impact. That was also a bit the conversation we had in the breakout room, that we are at the moment in this vicious circle of teacher shortages and and yeah, maybe not too flat career perspectives, and basically that at the individual school or the individual teachers is a bit trapped in this. So it really needs to have a more systemic view, bringing all the stakeholders together. And there I come a bit to the forms of the teacher's agenda, or the forms of working that could be envisaged, stronger tripartite social dialogue, look at the evidence gaps, and enable the benchmarks, enable benchmarks at EU level, and also bring in, of course, very strongly the national, and enable real conversations also in the tripartite way at the national level. These are some of the few forms. The call for a conference or a European summit on the teaching profession. I think these were what I heard. Of course, it's a lot for us to think about. There was also the question of the target group, and we had a bit of discussion in the breakout room. If we focus on teaching as a regulated profession or in the broad sense, I think we've heard both, that there's a need for both. In any case, don't forget the support structures that teachers need, the multi-professional teams. So yeah, that also would enable then to have yeah, diversified career pathways within schools, because there are different rules in schools as an employer. So maybe I summarize with this. Maybe something from the breakout rooms that you heard that you would like to add?